You're listening to the Black to Business Podcast, an educational podcast providing Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses. We chat with vetted Black entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and business owners as they provide tips and resources to help take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall. Hey, and welcome to the Black to Business Podcast. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall, and I just want to say I appreciate you for being here and tapping in for another week of this October solo series. If you've been following along, then you already know each week this month, we've been having real conversations about what it looks like to stay consistent in your business, and not in a performative way, but in a way that actually moves you forward and makes your process smoother. And today we're talking about content again. Yes, again, because this one's actually personal for me. Specifically, what creating consistent content has taught me about my audience, about my business, and even about myself. As someone who's now published over 270 episodes, a lot, shows up weekly in your inbox, and creates content across platforms, trust me when I tell you, this was not always my jam or my thing. I didn't always like content. When I started Black to Business, I didn't have a platform. Nobody knew my name. I didn't have a network that I could tap into or a list of people who were ready to put me on and spread the word about what I was doing. All I had was a mission and a belief that if I just kept showing up, people would eventually pay attention. And they did. But not because I had 1 million followers, because I absolutely did not, or because I posted every single day, because I also absolutely did not do that either. It was because I committed to showing up in a way I could sustain, whether that was on the podcast, through email, or on social media. I gave people something to come back to, and I created a standard that I could stick to. And so over time, that created trust. So in this episode, I want to walk you through what creating consistent content has taught me, not just about visibility, but about building that trust, making impact, and also figuring out what works for you. Whether you're a one-person team or you're growing your visibility on the side, while you're also trying to manage everything else. You don't have to post every day. You don't need 1 million followers, but you do need a consistent routine. Now, I know you didn't think this is going to be this episode that says, okay, you don't need to show up at all. No, I am saying you don't need 1 million followers, but you do need a consistent routine. You need a system that helps you stay in flow so that you're not constantly starting from scratch or falling off track. So today we're going to talk about what it actually looks like to build consistency over time, the difference between creating content and creating content with a purpose, and how to use your content to guide people back to what you own. And we're also going to talk about some behind the scenes of what I've learned from podcasting weekly, sending emails every Thursday, and building Black to Business brick by brick. So if you are tired of feeling like you're doing all the things but still being overlooked, this one is for you. So let's get into it. So when I started creating content for Black to Business, I was mostly guessing. I had some ideas and I had a whole heap of passion though, but I didn't know, or I really didn't know how to communicate it in a way that really connected. I didn't know who was listening. I was just trying to get the word out and hoping that it would reach the right people. But something happened once I started showing up consistently. Even when the audience was small, that consistency gave me something that I didn't expect, and that was clarity. So I started to notice patterns. I paid attention to what people were responding to. I could see which episodes got the most downloads, which emails had the highest open rates, which posts sparked some real conversation and feedback. And that feedback, it taught me who I was really talking to. So for example, I noticed early on that people weren't just looking for inspiration. They wanted steps, and they wanted to know the how because they were so tired of the fluff. And I think that's the motivational talk. And that's why if you've been around for a while, you know that we focus on clarity, simplicity, and action. And that was not random. That was a response to what my audience told me directly or either indirectly over time. And this is the part that I feel like oftentimes it gets overlooked, because creating consistent content isn't just about being seen. It's how you learn who's watching and what they need from you. So if you're someone who's in that phase where you're struggling to define your audience or figure out what your content should be about, my first piece of advice is this. I would say start showing up even before you feel like you're quote unquote ready. You can't refine something that doesn't exist. So you have to start showing up. You got to put something out there in the world so that people can respond to it. And that'll give you the information you need to improve. So here's a tip that helped me early on. Start tracking what topics get the most response. So what posts get DMs, what gets reshared, what emails are people replying to, and what also gets saved. And you can start with something so simple as a Google spreadsheet or an Excel spreadsheet, but start to track your numbers every single week. And you don't need a big following to do this. I would say sometimes the smallest engagements tell you the most. So even if it's one person saying, this really helped me, I want you to pay attention to that, because that's going to be your signal. And if you are thinking, I don't even know what to say, don't worry about that. We're going to get into some of the systems a little later in this conversation. And I'm also going to tell you about an upcoming workshop where we'll build your full 30-day plan together. But first, I want to talk about something else that content has taught me, something bigger than algorithms or captions, and that is the importance of ownership. So let's talk about it, because one of the biggest lessons content has taught me, especially as a Black founder, is how important it is to create something that you own and control, something that no one can take away from you. And content, it really supports that because it feeds it, it builds it. And here's what I mean when I say this. So when we think of content, we often jump straight into Instagram posts or TikTok videos. And while those things can be valuable tools, they're rented space. The platform decides the rules. The algorithm decides who sees it. And at any given moment, those rules can change. But your podcast, your newsletter, your website, those are the things you own. And that's what matters, especially for us as Black entrepreneurs. Because historically, we've been shut out of systems. We've been boxed out of rooms. We've had to fight just to be visible, let alone supported. So when we talk about visibility, we also have to talk about sustainability. And that's where ownership comes in. So let me tell you what this has looked like for me. When I got serious about showing up consistently with the podcast and the newsletter, by the way, if you aren't subscribed to the newsletter, please go to blacktobusiness.com/mailing list. But anyways, it wasn't just about being out there for me. I wanted a home for my content because I knew ownership was important from day one. And this was important because I wanted a place where people can always come back and find value, whether or not they follow me on social media or they even click or they even like something. And so that's why every Thursday morning at 6:30 a.m., we're in your inbox. And that is not by accident. That was by design. And that's why we repurpose episodes into newsletters and post show notes onto the website, because it drives traffic back to something that we own. And that's what I want you to start thinking about too. You don't have to start with this huge platform, but you do need a space where you can point people back to, a place that reflects your work, your message, and your offer, and that you can build over time. So here's a few simple ways to start anchoring your content into ownership. So first, you want to have a home base, whether that's a simple website, a blog, a simple landing page, or these days I'm seeing a lot of people create Notion pages. I think those are great as well. But you want to make sure that you're creating content that points people to a space that you control. So I'd say a landing page over maybe a Notion page. And then you want to start with an email list. I cannot stress this enough. please start an email list. And I know a lot of people say it, but I want you to hear me out. It doesn't have to be complicated. So you can start by sending one email every week, every other week, or at least once a month. And the goal is to start building those direct relationships and not relying only on social media to stay in touch with your audience. And then the next thing you want to do is repurpose with a purpose. So if you're putting time into creating a post, I want you to ask yourself, how can this also be a newsletter? How can this also be a blog post, a podcast talking point? I want you to stretch your content to work for you across channels that you do own. And the point here isn't to add more to your plate, it's to shift your mindset from how do I get seen to how do I build something people can come back to? Because here is what I do know. The loudest content isn't always the most impactful, but the most grounded, the most consistent content, that's what people return to. And that's what builds trust. I remember every time I look at the Google Analytics on Black to Business website, it's one article that is so popular. It was an article we did so long ago, I want to say 2016, where we did the Black Up founder. He lost control of his company, and we were one of the very few that wrote about an article about that situation. But that's an article that still gets eyes to this day. And it's not even one that we have when you go to the website, you can click around and find it. You really have to do a deep search or a Google search to find that. But I say that to say, like, that was a piece of content that was very impactful, and we focused on quality always, and it shows in our content. So we're very intentional. And that also helps bring even more website traffic. So when you own the place they're returning to, you're no longer just a part of the conversation. You're the one that's leading it. And so with that being said, I want to go ahead and get one thing out of the way, because this is another thing I hear all the time. I feel like I have to post every day to stay relevant. And listen, I get it. The pressure is real, because when you open your feed and it looks like everybody's dropping content nonstop, one day it's the reel, the next day it's a carousel, then it's a tweet, thread, a blog post, a YouTube short, a LinkedIn article. It's a lot. And if you are a team of one or even a small team, that's a lot. And that could get overwhelming, even just thinking about that. So trying to keep up with all of that will wear you out. And what's worse is it'll have you measuring your business success against someone else's content calendar. And let me be the one to say this clearly. You don't have to post every day to grow your business. But as I said in the beginning, you do have to be consistent. And here's the difference. Posting every day is about quantity. Being consistent is about clarity. It's about creating a schedule you can actually commit to, one that works for your business and also your bandwidth. So let me tell you what that looked like for me. When I brought back the Black to Business podcast, I committed to weekly episodes. I was not dropping content every single day on social media, but I did make a decision. Every Thursday, an episode drops. Every Thursday, an email goes out. And that was my commitment, and I kept it. And so over time, people started to notice, and I became the person who's always going to show up on Thursday, and that built trust. And that trust is what made people listen, share, and eventually buy. And so this is what I mean when I say consistency creates a rhythm and a flow that people can rely on. And it's less about how much you post and more about how reliably you show up. So try this. Ask yourself, what's a realistic posting schedule I can actually stick to? Is it once a week? Is it twice a month? Can I commit to that for the next 60 days, even if it's just one platform? And start there. And don't let the algorithms bully you into burnout, because it can happen. At the end of the day, your people don't need you to be everywhere. They need you to be consistent where it counts. And also remember, when you post with intention, even once a week, that content is still working. It's still building brand equity. It's still helping your people find you. So you don't have to do the most. You just have to do what matters and keep showing up for it. Which brings me to my next point. one of the most unexpected gifts of creating consistent content is clarity, not just for your audience, but also for you. So here's what I mean when I say this. So when I first started creating content for Black to Business, I had a general idea of what I wanted to say. I knew I wanted to talk to Black entrepreneurs. I knew I wanted to share resources and information. But if I'm being honest, my message at that time wasn't as sharp as it is now. So I was figuring it out as I went. I was testing the language. I was trying different topics. I was seeing what was landing. But with that, when I made that commitment to show up every week with the podcast, with the newsletter, with our posts, that consistency forced me to refine. I started to notice what felt aligned. I started to recognize what my audience cared about most. And I also started to trust my own voice. And I'll say this, the brand voice of Black to Business has changed so much. And I just love it because as you'll see in our copy nowadays, it has a lot of me in it, like the Southern twang, because I saw that's what people were relating to. And I would not have known that if I wouldn't have tried a lot of different things. And consistency gave me that space to get better and not be perfect, but better. And I feel like that's what has separated Black to Business content, because it's hard to sharpen your message when you only post every few months. It's hard to know your audience when you only talk to them in bursts or every other month. But when you show up regularly, even just once a week, trust me, you create a feedback loop. You get to see what people respond to. You start to hear the same questions. You notice the same themes, the same patterns, and you begin to understand what people are really looking for. And that's what happened for me. So I realized that my audience wasn't just interested in business talk. They wanted clear, beginner-friendly advice, and they wanted resources that didn't feel out of reach. And they were tired of the surface level motivation. They wanted to know how. And that feedback didn't come from guesswork. It came from showing up, from listening, from paying attention to what content got saved, what emails got replies, what episodes got shared. So if you've been feeling unsure about your niche, if you've been second guessing your messaging, or you're wondering why your audience doesn't feel engaged, I want to offer you this advice. The clarity you're looking for might not come before you start. It might come as a result of starting and staying consistent. And here's something you can do. You can start tracking what lands. And you don't need fancy tools. You can use, like I said before, you can use a Google Sheet or an Excel spreadsheet or even your notes app and jot it down. What got the most replies? What post sparked conversation? What topic did people thank you for? And do that consistently, and I promise you, a clearer picture of your people will start to emerge. Because clarity is not just this light bulb moment you happen. It's actually something that you build, and consistency is what builds it. And now let's talk about direction. Because one of the biggest shifts I had to make, especially once I started showing up consistently, was realizing that content shouldn't just float around on the internet. It needs to lead somewhere. And I don't mean just leading to likes or comments. I mean leading people back to you, back to what you've built, back to what you own. And here's the thing, because I'm not going to front, I love social media for the visibility that it provides. I really do. It's been a major part of Black to Business and our growth over the years. But I also understand that I don't own Instagram. I don't own TikTok. I don't own LinkedIn. And the algorithms change, platforms change. And just like that, the way people engage with your content can shift overnight. So I had to get really intentional. I started asking, how can I use this content, this moment of attention, to guide people somewhere that actually sustains my business? And that meant building an email list and making sure people knew about it, using call to actions in posts and podcast episodes that point people to resources, downloads, or signups. And there's definitely been a noticeable difference here when it comes to call to actions between now and the earlier days. And also making sure our content always circles back to something we own, like the podcast, the newsletter, or the website. Because this is bigger than just followers. And I think that this is especially important for us as black entrepreneurs, because we have spent so much time, so much energy and money building on borrowed platforms. But ownership is power, and that's true in real estate, and it's also true in business. Your content should be a bridge, not a destination. For example, the Black to Business podcast. That's content, but it's also a tool that brings people deeper into our world. Each episode points back to resources, the site, our events, our services. Same thing with our newsletter. It's not just updates. It's a consistent touch point that builds trust and also brings people closer to action. And the best part is when people land on your owned spaces, whether that's your site, your product, your email list, you can control the conversation. You're not fighting the algorithm. You're not hoping to go viral. You're speaking directly to the people who chose to hear from you. And here's something simple that you can do this week. Look at your last 3 posts or emails and ask yourself, where is this leading people? Did it guide them to something you own, or did it lead them at the scroll? If you've been showing up online but feeling like you're not building anything, this could be why. You don't need to overhaul your strategy. You just need to anchor it. And so here's a quick reminder as well. Visibility is good and all, but visibility that leads to ownership, that's what's going to sustain your business. So now that we've talked about content having direction, here's the next thing I want to make sure that you really hear. You do not need a big team to show up consistently, but you do need a system, because without one, content starts to feel like a full-time job. And for a lot of us as Black entrepreneurs, especially if you're doing it solo or with a tiny team, that's just not sustainable. When I brought back the Black to Business podcast in 2021 and committed to weekly content, it wasn't because I suddenly had more help. I didn't have a big team. I had a better system. I took the time to figure out what needed to happen in what order and how I could streamline it so that I wasn't constantly reinventing the wheel. And I'll be honest, it was not fancy. It looked like picking a day to plan, a day to record, and a day to schedule. And it also looked like using templates, checklists, and batching so that I wasn't jumping from idea to execution every single day. I had to figure out how to make content work around my life, not the other way around. And that's why I'm such a big advocate for building a repeatable system early, even before you grow your team. Because when your systems are clear, it makes it so much easier to eventually hand them off and get your time back. Now, here's where I want to invite you into something that can actually help you with that. So next Wednesday, October 29th, I'm hosting a live workshop called Create a Consistent 30-Day Content Plan, even if you're doing it solo. It's a part of our Quick Win workshop series, and it's specifically for entrepreneurs who are tired of guessing what to post, tired of trying to do it all on their own, and ready to finally build a plan that actually fits your life. So in this workshop, we're going to help you build a full content calendar that supports your business goals. So for you, that might be posting 3 times a week. For you, that might be posting 30 times a month, whatever it is that fits your business goal. And then we're also going to choose a theme and type of post that makes sense for your audience. We're going to create a posting system and rhythm that you can actually keep up with. And most importantly, learn how to let your content lead back to what you own. So if you've been vibing with this series and you're ready to turn that inspiration into a plan, this workshop is your next step. So head over to blacktobusiness.com/workshops to grab your spot. And if you're listening to this episode after the live date, still check out that link. We'll update it with any upcoming Quick Win workshops, replays, or resources you can tap into whenever you're ready. And if you want to start small today, I recommend checking out our 30 Days of Content in Hours shortcut. It's the exact system that I use, but it's powered by AI to help you brainstorm smarter, batch content faster, and show up with clarity and not chaos. So you can grab that anytime at blacktobusiness.com/shortcuts. Because listen, consistency is hard when you're trying to do everything from scratch. But when you have a system, it gets lighter. You're not starting over every single week. You're moving with purpose, and you can actually feel like you're getting somewhere. So here's what I want you to walk away with from this episode. Creating consistent content isn't just about algorithms or trying to keep up with trends or trying to post every single day. It's about knowing your people, building trust, and giving your business a clear voice, one that shows up when it says it will. That consistency is what builds credibility. It's what gets people to stick around, and it's also what gives you the feedback and insight you need to grow. Not just your content, but your business as a whole. And listen, this does not have to be complicated. You just need a system that works for you. So here's your challenge this week. Pick one platform you're going to focus on for the next 30 days. Decide how often you're going to show up. Now, don't overpromise. Just choose a flow that works and you can actually stick with. Then you're going to create a simple plan for what you'll share each week, even if it's just a theme or a topic. Start there. Don't wait until you feel ready. Just start showing up consistently and intentionally. The clarity, the confidence, and the community, that all comes with time. And if you want support building that plan, I'd love to see you at the live Quick Win workshop next Wednesday, October 29th. We're building your full 30-day content plan together, and we'll have some Q&A time. And this is great even if you're doing it solo. So head to blacktobusiness.com/workshop to grab your seat. And if you're catching this episode after that date, still visit the link. We'll always update it with upcoming workshops and resources to help you stay consistent without the overwhelm. And of course, don't forget the 30 days of content in an hour shortcut is always available at blacktobusiness.com/shortcuts. It's everything, honestly, I wish I would have had when I was trying to figure this thing out in the beginning. So we've covered a lot today, and I can't thank you enough for listening. Thank you for showing up for yourself and for your business. And also thank you for continuing to build boldly. I can't wait to chat with you again next week. But until then, keep on pushing the culture forward. Later.